Hey, Nikki here with Beauty Shador with my latest pattern, which is the Kobo Coat, and I love her. I really do. So this is a 10-piece, I believe it's 10 pieces. It's a 10-piece coat that, again, if you want to hack it, you want to do whatever with it, you want to make it longer, you want to remove the welt pockets, you want to put a zipper in it, you want to make it something different, change it up. But what remains are these sleeves. The sleeves ain't going nowhere. So you do have an option to kind of do whatever you want with the coat. It is pretty seamless. There's no collar. I know a lot of people hate collars. It's really easy to make. That makes the whole process like really seamless, really easy. What I do is I take you step by step through the entire process. So the video is going to be about an hour and a half, maybe a little over an hour and a half. And I am taking you from how to build up the sleeves, how to build them up to make them stand on their own so they don't flop over and they're sturdy and they feel good while you're wearing it. So I take you from beginning to end. Now, the instructions in the Outlook where the pattern comes, they are going to be very brief instructions because this coat is designed to follow the YouTube instructions, which again are step by step. I take you through the entire process. So it will tell you though in the Outlook if you need to hem it, where to go within the YouTube video, where you need to build up the sleeves, where you need to go, the welt pockets. So it's all going to be noted there in the actual Outlook. So hopefully that makes it a little easier. But again, if whatever fabric you're using, you're going to need something that is going to be a little sturdy, a little stable, jacquard, some heavier wools, upholstery fabric. I love upholstery fabric. These are great for upholstery fabric because again, you can build up your sleeve. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, let me know. Happy sewing.
Okay, so I've already gone ahead and I have add interfacing to all the pieces. Now this part is going to depend on how thick your fabric is. So if you have fabric that has more flexibility and you need it to be kind of stand up on its own, a little more stable, then I would recommend going through and interfacing all the pieces, which is what I've done. And clearly I kind of patched this together, but that's not an issue. So I went ahead and for all the pieces, I interfaced the back, front, everything. Make sure if you are using fusible interfacing that it's fused really well. So let's go ahead and just put all these to the side. Okay, now what we're going to do is build kind of like the sleeve. So as you see, the sleeve kind of stands up and it's really stable and sturdy, and it gives you that voluminous look. You have to build it up from the inside. Even if you have a fabric that is thicker and heavier, you still want to do this process. You may not need to do multiple levels and multiple layers, but you will need to do that if you want your sleeve to stand up. So I will do the one and it will apply for all the pieces. Now, this is just going to be for the front and the back. So the sleeve has two pieces. It has the back piece, which is this one right here, and then it has the front piece. Let me grab this. This is the front or the back? Okay, this is the two back pieces. All right, and this is the front piece. So you're going to stabilize and build up the four pieces, the two front and the two back. But I will set this to the side for now. So what you're going to need to do this is a tailor's interfacing. So this is a thick interfacing. It's not like a traditional interfacing, which is this one. This is a fusible interfacing. This is one that you need to stitch in it feels very different than your traditional interfacing. This is really good for more tailored applications. And what I'll do is, I'm not sure if they still have this one available, but I will link a comparable alternative. So we're going to need the interfacing. We're also going to use a fusible interfacing, because with this one, is not fusible, so you will need to stitch it in, but we're going to avoid having to do that. We're going to use this interfacing as well as this Ultra Hold Heat and Bond, which I absolutely love. So we're going to use these 3 pieces. So you're going to pretty much make the pattern just for the part that you're going to build up. So you're going to use either the front sleeve or back sleeve. And you're only going to need 1 piece, because then you're going to cut out, you're going to use this as kind of like the template for the pieces that you need to build up. Okay, so what you want to do, I'm going to take this interfacing just because it's a lot heavier, and I'm going to use this one pretty much as my pattern. I've already kind of have this perforated line that I made when I cut out a different one, but we'll go ahead and measure it so you know where to cut. So go ahead and get something that you can trace, some type of tracing paper. And you want to put this under here. And I'm going to put 2 because this one isn't long enough. I'm going to pin this. Okay, so if you can see here, this is pretty much where this exaggerated part starts. We're going to start right here. And then right up here, which is,
motion detected at front door.
This is like 2 inches from the neck. So I'm using the front sleeve. So if we're basing this off of the front sleeve, 2 inches from the neck, and then just kind of put a little mark here. We'll put 1 mark, 2 inches. And then you want to start the other part right where it begins to curve and do kind of like that moon shape here. And then you want to find the center. So you can kind of eyeball it. And these dimensions, they don't need to be exact. But we're going to go here and you're going to go down about 3 inches. So from the center, 3 inches. So we have this end and this end. And what you want to do is you want to, I'm just going to kind of like sketch this. And you want to join these marks up. So this line that I just drew is where you want to do your, use your wheel, and you want to transfer the markings to your interfacing. Okay, and then what you want to do is go ahead and you want to cut this out. But first you want to cut the outside. Again, it doesn't need to be exact. You just need to get the point across.
Motion detected at front door.
Okay, then go ahead and take your pins out. and then cut out at the line here. I like to go a bit below the marking. Okay, so this is the piece we're going to use. So now what you want to do is you want to cut out 3 more of these, 4 pieces of the fusible interfacing, and you want to cut out 2 pieces of the ultra hold heat and bond. Now, depending on, after you put these together and we apply them, depending on how sturdy your sleeve is going to be, if it's going to sit up, you may need another layer or 2. So it just depends, but we'll start here. So let's go ahead and finish cutting these pieces out, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have all the building pieces cut out. Now what you want to do is we're going to grab an iron and we're going to apply these. So we're going to do each of this little pieces of the set we're going to do for all 4 sides. So the front and the back of this, both of the sleeves. So I'm starting with the front. So first we're going to put the heat bond. So what you may need to do, which is what I did to this one, you may need to kind of like just trim the edges to make it fit on the curve. You may or may not, but let me grab pins really quick. I'll grab these. Okay, and let's go ahead and just kind of stick a few pins in it. So remember where we cut it. So it's going to be around right here. So just kind of like stick a little pin in there. Not too many because we are going to iron this down and you'll have to kind of pry the pins out if you put too many. So if you can see here how it's kind of buckling up, I just kind of trimmed it or put little clips in it and it'll lay down nicely. So essentially what this is allowing us to do is fuse the tailor's interface. In addition to that, it's going to also provide stability because it's not too thick, but it definitely has some weight to it. So I'm just going to put this one in. Okay, so So I'm just going to move this over so you can see. And then iron this down. So once you do this, you're going to let it cool because you don't want to pull it off until it's completely cool. All right, so we'll let it cool for about 30 seconds and be right back. Okay. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and peel this off. Okay, and once we do that, we're going to go ahead and take the tailor's interfacing and place it on here. And then go ahead and iron this. So you want to make sure you place a protectant over it because if the heat bond gets in the iron, it's kind of a pain to get it off. Okay, so now what you want to do is then take the fusible interfacing and you want to place the fusible interfacing. And you may have to clip it as well, but we'll see. And just make sure as you're fusing this on there that you give a lot of heat and steam to make sure it adheres well and doesn't pop back up. So if you're feeling really ambitious, you could just do some basting tailor stitches throughout or not, it's your choice. Okay, so as you can see, it provides much more stability. So when the coat is constructed, the sleeves won't collapse. They'll stand up nicely. So if you feel that you need another layer of stability, what you should do is either add more interfacing, and conversely, if your interfacing is thicker, you probably won't need to. My interfacing is a bit thinner. So if I wanted to add even more stability, I could do that, but I would add another layer of the heat bond and then the tailor's interfacing. So it's completely up to you. You can, depending on the thickness of your fabric and the density of your fabric, as well as your fusible, it's your choice. But what you want to do is you want to repeat this process for the other 3 pieces, the front and the back. Okay, so we have the sleeves done in terms of kind of like the building up. Now what we want to do, we'll go ahead and set these to the side. And we're going to do the welt pockets in the front. Okay, so make sure you have the markings that you've already done on both sides. So there's the 2 lines, which is going to make kind of like the box. And what we want to do now is we want to take the corner. We're going to make a little point. And it's really important, if you have extremely thick fabric, you want to make this point just a little larger, because when you turn it right side out, you want to make sure you're able to take this tab and pull it all the way out. So again, if your fabric is much thicker, just make this a little larger. So it's just kind of like a little point right here. And we'll do the same thing on the other side, making sure these are the same size. So if you need to get your sewing gauge to measure, I would do that. So you can see this is about 1/2 inch on each side, and we'll do the same size on this side here. So you want to take it from the corner, the other corner, meeting up in the middle. So then you'll take a straight edge and you're going to draw a line connecting the tips of these. Now what you want to do is you want to take, I'm going to just kind of do this across. And this isn't necessary, but visually I need to be able to see this for some crazy reason. All right, so now what you're going to do is you want to take and stitch from here to here, here to here, not across the bottom, but so from here to here, here to here. Now, it's really important that where you stop here, you need to stop directly on the other side. So if you need to kind of mark this, go ahead and do that, because you need to make sure you stop at the same place. So it needs to be directly across. The same thing goes for this side as well. Okay, let's go ahead and stitch that. This might be a little too light. Let me darken that up some so that you can see it a bit better. Okay, so I have this stitched all the way around. And now I'm going to take and just make a little slit right here in the middle. I like to use a seam ripper to kind of start it. So I'm just gonna kind of open this a bit right here. Kind of open this. Then stick my scissors in and then just cut down this line. So as you're cutting, you're going to get to the top right here, and then you're going to cut to the side. Make sure you don't cut through that bottom stitch. And you have to be precise in terms of where you cut here, you're going to have to cut the same space on the other side. Now let's turn this around and do the same thing. And go in here, clip, and clip. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to take it to the iron, and you want to iron this over as well as this flap, these flaps on the side and both sides. So essentially it's all going to be open. And while you're there, go ahead and iron this with right sides together. So we'll do that and be right back. Okay, so we have this pressed and we have the actual welt press. Now what we want to do is we want to stitch the sides. We're going to do that using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so once you have this stitch, we're just going to trim. So when we trim it, we want to kind of clip the edge here and then just kind of trim this, clip here, and then trim this down. Turn it right side out. Use something to kind of poke this out. And then we're going to give it a really good press. So we'll do that and be right back. Okay, so we have this press. Now let's go ahead and baste stitch right along the edge here. Okay, so I have a very detailed welt pocket tutorial. If you look at my videos here on YouTube, you will see it, and it's a quick and kind of easy tutorial that's taking you exactly step by step by step in the event that anything here is missed. But I think this should be pretty clear. So we have this part done. Now what you want to do is go ahead and flip this over. And I'm just going to give this one quick press again, just because my fabric is quite thick and I just want to make sure it's nice and flat. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and slide this in. So make sure when you're doing this that this open part, the part you did not base stitch, is going to be at the top and up toward the outside seam. All right, and see how you like it positioned. And then you're going to flip it over. So you have this extra seam that's here that we folded under. What we're going to do is we're going to grab that. And we're going to line up the bottom of the welt with that extra seam there. We're going to pin it. I'm actually going to use clips because this fabric is pretty thick. So I'm going to clip this. Just put a few in here. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch. And what you need to do is stitch directly on top of this current stitch line that you have here, making sure you reinforce the ends. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. So we have this in. We're going to go ahead and give it a good press. Okay, so now we have it pressed. And so we're going to flip this over. We're going to take the lining. And the lining is one piece that you're going to fold over. You're going to, with right sides together, line up the bottom edge. If you see here, this is where the under the arm is going to be. So this is the top edge. This is the bottom edge. So with the bottom edge, right sides together, you're going to have to come in and because this like little seam allowance is really thin, you have to be careful as you're grabbing this. And you want to clip these together. So then you have this other piece here. We're going to take and do the same thing on this other side. We're going to clip this to this seam allowance. I'm going to turn this around. And again, the seam allowance is like really thin, so we have to be very careful. Sorry about all that noise. It is, I don't know if you can hear, but it's recess time. And I live right across the street from an elementary school. And these kids come out every day, just like screaming like crazy. It's funny. All right, so let's go ahead and clip this together. Okay, so we have this side clipped, this side. Let's go ahead and stitch across each side. Okay, so we have the tops and the bottom of this stitch. Now what you want to do is we want to stitch the side seams. But when you stitch this, you want to make sure you grab the little peaks that we cut out. We want to make sure we grab this as we stitch down the side. If you don't, then your pocket will have like a little hole. So we'll go ahead and stitch each side, making sure we grab the little peak that we cut out. Okay, so we have the sides of the lining stitched up. Just going to trim these. Now, let's go ahead and do the final touch, which is stitching the edges down. So what you want to do is you want to stitch as close to the edge as you can while making sure you grab the edge as well as the bottom fabric. We want to do that for both sides. Okay, now what you want to do is give it a really good press. Make sure it works properly. And you want to repeat this process with the other front as well. So we'll go ahead and do that and be right back. So we have the welt pockets done. Now we want to set one aside and grab the front. So this is the front half of the sleeve. So remember, the sleeve comes in two parts. So when you put the sleeves together, you first have to put the back piece with the sleeve and the front piece with the sleeve. So this is one side of the sleeve. We're going to go ahead and attach, and just so that you know, because it seems a little awkward, you have this part underneath the sleeve. It's like this little pointed part. And then you have kind of like this curved part underneath the sleeve. You want to take this pointed part. It's essentially going to look like this. So you want to put this together. And then you want to take this other part here in the corner and match it up with the little curved part here. And then the part that's left out, you want to match this up here. So you may need to clip around this curve depending on the type of fabric that you have. Put the clips in. And I'm only using the clips because it's easier. And this fabric it has some weight to it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Making sure you reinforce the stitch under here, kind of like in this little curve. And again, if you need to clip, so what that means is this side, the actual front, will be a bit longer, which is completely normal. You may have to stitch and then making sure you stitch right here. Let me get a pin. So you would stitch about a ½ inch in. So just do just a few stitches right along here. And then clip to the stitch, making sure you don't clip through the stitch. And that kind of spreads the fabric a bit so that you can fit it easier in this little, that's if you don't want to mess around with trying to get it to fit in here. And if you have a really heavy fabric that has no flexibility. Otherwise, just go ahead and stitch all the way around. Okay, so we have this stitched. Now what you want to do is, with your seam allowance open, go ahead and press all the way around. Okay, so we have this pressed, seam allowance pressed open. Now we want to do the exact same thing to the other side. So we want to take this one and put on the front sleeve just like we did this one. I'm going to go ahead and do that and be right back. Okay, so we have the front sleeve attached to both sides. Now let's go ahead and set this to the side. We're going to grab the back sleeves. This is from my iron. God forbid another gravity feed dies on me. Okay, so what we're going to do is these are both sleeves to the back side. Now we're going to just put these together and we're going to stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, go ahead and press that seam allowance open. Okay, so we have the back stitched and we have it pressed. Now what you want to do is you want to take the large back piece and we want to, with right sides together, we're going to line this corner up and essentially do the same thing we did with the front. So we're going to line this up. But first what we're going to do is only work under the arm. So we're going to leave this middle part loose as of now. But we're just going to line the underarm up. And we're just going to stitch the underarm separate from the majority of the back. So you're going to put the two ends together, and you're going to fit this in. Okay, so you see where we have kind of the 2 points. We're just going to stitch this. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So just this part here and this part here from the corner out. Okay, so once you have it pinned, go ahead and stitch from the corner out, making sure you reinforce the ends as well as the corner. Okay, so we have the two sides and we have stitch and we have this like opening here. So what we want to do is find the center. So this is the center. And just kind of to remember where the center is. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to continue to pin as you go around. So you want to put, again, just kind of continue to pin this. Because what's going to happen is we're going to have excess in the middle, which is where we're going to pleat it. But we want to make sure that pleat is right in the center. So just keep pinning as you go around. Get out. Okay, so this is the center here. We want to go now and start on this other side. We're still leaving this loose. Okay, so once you get about here, we want to take where the center is and we want to pin the center right on the back seam here. And then we want to take and we want to pleat the back. So we're going to take the excess that you have. So once you pin this and you get to the center, you will have excess. You'll have excess on each side. So what you're doing is you're pleating the excess that you have. So you want to pleat it, just take it. I'll show you here. Just take it and pleat it over. And you want to do the same thing to the other side. You want to take it and pleat it over. So now what you want to do is go ahead and finish stitching. So again, reinforce here in the corner, go all the way over, reinforce in this corner. After you do that, press your seam allowance open. Okay, so we have the back stitch and pressed. Now what you want to do is grab the front. So make note of something else. Make sure you have your back sleeve pleats. Make sure you have them marked because they will come into play once we begin to attach the front to the back. So this isn't a traditional dart where you do like this, right? What's going to happen is once you put these together, it's going to be pretty much a pleated dart. So once you put this together, you can go ahead and do it now, but I typically do mine after the fact to kind of like pleat it in. But if you like, you can go ahead and do yours now. So you would simply do this and then stitch it. And then press it in a downward motion. Okay, so if you've gone ahead and done your pleat, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take the front and attach it to the back with right sides together. So you have this part here that's the neck. You're going to line this up. And then go ahead and use your clamps. So I'm going to leave this open for now. And I'm going to attach the two sleeves together. And right now, this is the top half. I'm not going to do the bottom half yet. So then I'm going to come back up here. So if you've already gone and done your pleat, then just go ahead and continue to close these up. But if not, you just go ahead and do your pleat as you go. I prefer to do them this way because honestly it takes like one step away. But if you're comfortable doing it the other way, then that's fine too. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to do the same thing to the bottom. And again, there is no pleat at the bottom, so just go ahead and with ends together. I'm putting so many clips because it is such a thick fabric and I don't want it to move as I'm stitching. Okay, so now once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch all the way around using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have the back and the front stitched. So now what you want to do is you want to go through and turn it right side out and press really well. So because of the nature of the stability that we created here, it's going to be very difficult to press the seam allowance open. So you will just have to press it really hard and try to get like really in the crease to press that out. And if you can, for the rest, press the seam allowance open. So the press job has to be like real serious, especially when it comes to this up here. So go ahead, press the seams open, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have the sleeves ironed out. Need to trim these strings. So now what we want to do is kind of put this to the side for now. And we have the back facing. So we want to go ahead, stitch the back facing, and then press the seam allowance open. We're going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have the back neck facing stitched and pressed. Now what we want to do is attach this to the front facing.
Motion detected at front door.
So we want to go ahead and pin these with right facing. And we want to go ahead and stitch these. And we're going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you stitch these, go ahead and press the seam allowance open. Okay, so we have the front facing connected to the back facing and everything nicely pressed. Now what we want to do is we want to take the back. I'm going to set this to the side for now, but we want to take the back and the back sleeve, and we want to construct this the same way we did the front. So we want to take the lining, we want to stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and then press it open. Okay, so we have the back sleeve stitched and pressed. Now we want to attach the bottom. Again, we're going to do this the exact same way we did the outer. So we're going to, with right sides together, I'm going to match the little corner up. And then this peak into this corner here. And then fit this in. I feel like these pins are magnetic. It's kind of weird. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Again, leaving this middle part open. Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch both sides, and then we'll come back and do the center. Okay, so we have the sides that's going to pretty much fall underneath the armpit. Now we're going to go ahead and at the center mark, we're going to line the center mark up with the back seam, and we're going to pin this. Then we're going to take the remaining that's open here, and we're going to pin this. Now I'm just going to use these. So once you get about an inch from the center, you're going to leave it open because we're going to need this extra that's here to pleat. And so we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Again, once you get about an inch, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to pleat this. And then you're going to pleat the other side to fit. All right, now you're going to go ahead and you're going to stitch. Just continue the stitch that you did for underneath the sleeve, and then press the seam allowance open. Okay, so we have the back stitch and pressed. Now what we're going to do is the same thing to the front that we did with the outer, with the exception of one thing. The sizing and the dimensions are going to be very different because we are also using our facing. So it's the same thing, but just in like a smaller version. So the front is only going to go over this far, where before it went over all the way, and the bottom half was significantly larger as well. So let's go ahead through the same process and repeat this. Again, we're going to take this, line it up with this in the corner. We're going to make sure right sides are together. So this little peak here. And then this little corner, we're going to match this up. And then we're going to go ahead and fit this in here. And we'll pin this. And then we're going to take the remaining, match this up here. And then we're going to pin it. We're going to stretch this to make sure it fits. Okay, now go ahead and stitch this. Stitch and then press, and then repeat the process with the other front half. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and press this. So just so that you can understand, this is the top front sleeve and this is the bottom front. So go ahead and press and then repeat this process with the other front and sleeve. Okay, so we have the front stitched and pressed. Now what we're going to do, one step that I did leave out. Let's go back to the back facing. So, or the back lining. There are 2 darts that's around the neck area here. So make sure you transfer those darts over. So, and they're small darts. So let's go ahead and do these darts and then press them out. And let's do the other one over here. And then we're going to stitch them and press them in toward the center seam. Okay, so we went ahead and pressed the darts for the back lining. But one thing I just did, and I made this change, just to provide a better fit for the lining, I added darts to the front lining. So you may or may not need to do it, and it's totally going to depend on your fabric and the way you cut it. So I feel like I made it with and without. I do like the fit of the lining with the darts as opposed to without the darts. So I'm going to go ahead, and on your pattern you'll see the markings for darts. So let's just go ahead and do those really quickly. And when you're going through the process of cutting out your lining, You can definitely do all of these things prior. I don't always do my markings all at once, which is actually, it's not a good thing to do that, but that's just kind of like how I operate. So just go ahead and do your markings, and we'll insert these darts. And then once you do that, just go ahead and press the dart. Now you can open the dart and press it out flat. It's not necessary, especially because you're using a lining fabric, which is typically much thinner. I would recommend doing that, like opening the dart. If we're working with a larger dart, like this one is a bit wider, and you're using a heavier fabric, that way the dart will lay nice and flat. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll stitch these and then press. Okay, so we have the back lining as well as the front constructed. Now let's go ahead and we're going to put these together, right sides together. And we're going to pin them. So we're starting at the top here, right here. So kind of where this peak is and where the peak to the front is. And we're going to pin. And I like to go down to the wrist here and pin this. And then go ahead and pin this. We'll set this over for now. So you will notice the back sleeve is a bit wider than the front sleeve, and that is fine because you also have to remember we built up the actual coat sleeve, so you're going to need a little more in the back to kind of account for that. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to stitch all the way around and around the top as well. You're going to do that using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you're going to do it for this side as well as the other sleeve. Once you do that, go ahead and press the seam open. Okay, so we have the lining connected, Now what you want to do is take the facing, front facing, neck facing, and you want to attach this to the lining. So what you want to do is take this part here and you want to line it up to the back seam. So you want to line this seam up to the back seam, right sides together. Make sure, okay. And then go all the way around. So I'm going to line up the bottom here. And then clip it all the way around. Okay, so we have this clipped in. Now what you want to do is you want to go ahead and stitch using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. After you do that, go ahead and press the seams flat. Okay, so we have the facing connected to the lining. Now what you want to do is you want to connect the facing and the lining to the actual coat. So we are going to, with right sides together, we're going to start here with the neck. And we're going to connect this here, and we're going to go all the way around. So we're going to connect the facing to the front edge. And then we're going to do the neck. Okay, then you are going to stitch all the way around using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press the seam really well. So after you do that, once you press the seam, you want to try to open the seam up as much as you can because the fabric is going to be kind of thick. So open the seam up, press the seam, and then press it flat again. That way you get a nice really crisp press on it. So when you fold it over, it'll be nice and flat. So let's go ahead and stitch again using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have everything pressed. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to do the sleeves. And after we do that, we are going to go through the entire coat and we are going to stitch the seam allowance to the inside of the coat. So that too will help make sure that, like, as you're wearing it, it doesn't kind of like slip over. Sometimes you see coats and you see the seam that's supposed to be here, but sometimes you see it and it looks like this. So this is going to help some of that kind of like slippage as you wear the coat. But for now, let's go ahead and we're going to do the sleeve. We're going to stitch the lining to the sleeve. So we're going to turn this. Here's the sleeve. It's in here somewhere. Make sure when you line these seams up that you are lining the top seam with the top seam of the outside and the bottom seam with the bottom seam of the outside. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch this using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. And we're going to do that for both sleeves. So once you do that, just turn the jacket back out, the sleeve back out, right side out. But don't press it quite yet. So go ahead and do that. We're going to stitch again using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around for both sleeves. Okay, so we have the sleeve stitched and the jacket turned right side out. So now what you want to do, let me grab I don't know where my sewing gauge is. So what you want to do is, so you have your sleeve stitched in, and so you want to measure an inch. So where you have this measured an inch all the way around, you might want to just kind of clip it. You want to then go ahead and give it a really good press. So you want to do that for both sleeves. Okay, so we have the sleeve pressed. So now what we want to do is we want to go through and kind of turn this as far, and you want to get as far in as you can, but you want to stitch the seam allowance that you have here and all the way around the inside of the jacket, you want to stitch it down. So it's important that you stitch in the direction of the lining and the facing, not in the direction of the outside, because you don't want the stitching to show on the outside of the jacket. So you want to start stitching, making sure when you do that, as you're stitching, you're kind of pulling the seam. And you want to set your
Motion detected at front door.
and then you want to just go in here and stitch. And so you're stitching this flat. So, as you can see, I stitched up to this point. So it's allowing this seam to lay a bit flatter. So you want to do this all around the jacket. Get in as far as you can, especially when it comes to the neck. You want to do this all the way around and then press it one more time. Okay, so we went ahead and understitched all the way around. And now the final step, which is to hem. So if you follow me for any period of time or you've made anything that I've made, then you know I like to leave my, like the lining separate. I am not a fan of the baggy method. So I do like to leave mine apart from the actual coat. So what we're going to do, let me grab, we're going to fold this under all the way around 1 inch. So we're going to do it all the way around, including separately the lining. So in addition, the lining 1 inch. So you're going to do this around the perimeter of the coat. And then you're going to do a blind stitch. If you don't have a blind stitch presser foot, then I would do a blind hand stitch because you don't want the thread showing on the outside of the coat. So we're going to go ahead and again turn this under 1 inch all the way around, including the lining, and do a blind stitch all the way around.